evening, everyone. Okay, hi. It is so nice to see when people walk in, they're all smiling and talking to each other. And even though I don't really know many of you, I kind of know I like you already because we fundamentally have something obviously in common. And that lady's got my T-shirt. And anyway, animals are not property, objects, slaves. There's a few of those people around. So I hope my voice is going to last. I don't have a microphone, but hopefully you can hear me at the back. Excellent. Okay. So, without any introduction, I'm sure I'm friends with many of you on Facebook. I hope so, anyway. And but my name's Clare Mann. Sounds like I'm an alcoholic, but I'm a vegan psychologist. Okay, I'm definitely not recovering. This is a condition that is not going to go away anytime soon. Okay, but I became quite clear about, I've been a psychologist for over 25 years, and I'd like to share with you very briefly my vegan journey, if I may, just to sort of, to talk about, how I find myself in places like this, using the craft I believe I have, and to inspire other people that all of us have skills and attributes that we've got to work to our sweet spot and bring our gifts to the world, because together, if you want to go fast, you work on your own. If you want to go far, we've got to work together. And there's a lot of work to be done, as we all know. But it was nearly 37 years ago that I read a book by someone called Bob Geldof. Does anybody remember him? Yeah, you can always see the people who are the same vintage or that point. Absolutely. Sorry?
I always think of him from I don't like Mondays.
Tell me why I don't like Mondays. Okay. Does anybody not know who Bob Geldof is? A few people. Okay. Now, as you're working in shopping malls, that song comes over at this Christmas period, whatever our views are about that whole process, and you hear the song, "And So This Is Christmas." Now, that was the song that was put together, the brainchild of Bob Geldof, because in about early 80s, I believe, there was a big famine in Africa. And he pulled together a lot of musicians of the day and said, we've got to come together, make a record and put the proceeds to the famine. And they organised themselves, and it was called Live Aid, and they came together and created this amazing song, "And So This Is Christmas." And 40 years later, it must be, it's still out there, okay? But how did he come into my life? Because I was about 17, and I read a book of his called Is That It? And it was his autobiography, which was very strange, because he wasn't very old, hadn't lived that long. And in there, he talked about a life of poverty in Ireland, and he worked in an abattoir. And I didn't see anything, I didn't hear anything, I didn't smell anything. But as I'm telling you now, I can see those images in my head, and I can see exactly what happened to that cow. And it was in that moment that I gave up meat. But unfortunately, as so many of us find on our vegan journey, I didn't ask the questions. And I started to think, this is not possible that people could treat animals like this. And I got on with my life, and I, was perfectly happy moving into being a vegetarian, and comfortable with that, and thought I was doing the right thing. And got on with my life. Went to college, had boyfriends, travelled, do all the things that we all do. And luckily, there is a God. I was allergic to dairy products, and I had eczema. And so that went into my life as well. But it was not until about 10 years ago, 14 years ago, that my partner Brendan and I went to live in New Zealand. And we lived in the top of the South Island. Anybody from New Zealand here? Yeah, so you know the South Island. Okay. And we wanted to build an off-the-grid house with solar and hydroelectric and live with a very little footprint on the land, sort of thing. And I hadn't been there long when I hear this terrible howling. And an awful howling of dogs. And, we can either close our ears and say, it's not my problem and move house. Or, like the people in this room, they've been moved to say, that's not good enough. As soon as I know about this, I'm culpable in this if I don't do anything. And so I went to investigate. And that's when I came across pig dog hunting. And I do remember, I could see her face now, is putting my hands through the bar of a cage of a dog that had been scored by a pig and thrown back into the thing. Seen as a ferocious dog, and then I've learnt about how they're treated to get them like that because they're so desperate and so hungry. And it was -7 degrees, and our poles were sticking to the thing. So I arranged all those dogs to be taken away, of course, and then they cleaned the prisoners up and they went back. So I started to look at the institutionalised process of animal abuse. And it started to really affect me. So much so I had to leave New Zealand. We could not live right next to a hunting culture. It was very impossible. And then the real story began. because I came back and my husband at the time, same guy, partner, he said to me, we've got to find out what's going on because it can't just be a fluke of New Zealand. And so he came across the video footage by Animals Australia of the factory farming of pigs. And I've been a psychologist 25 years. I've worked in homicide, where I've worked with families that have lost people to death. And you imagine, you hear a lot of stories. We hear it from our friends. But in tiny rooms, people have told me a lot of things. When I saw that footage, I did not know that I could hurt that much. And everybody understands that. I did not know that we could reach a level of depravity. And I guess it was a few weeks later that I heard the word veganism, and I realised that could I live all the questions we ask, and I became a vegan. And I think now, if I knew what I know now 30 years ago, so we don't want people in the future saying, well, I live next door to all you lot, and I didn't know, why didn't you tell me? So we've got to get really good at this. We've got to get where we are thriving. And who finds this difficult? Who feels they're thriving? Every day they get up, they feel empowered, excellent. Great, but not enough of us. Okay, so when I say thriving, are you able to tell me what that means? What's a thriving vegan?
Loving life, get up, enjoy the birds.
Yes.
Just loving life.
Yeah, loving life?
I think for me, changing my food has been super easy.
Yes.
A no-brainer.
Yes. That's right. But it's thriving then is about health, it's about abundance. But for who came here? Who's a vegan here? Okay. Who's a vegetarian? Great. That's right. Say goodbye to the lady next door. She'll be different by the end of the evening.
I'm not vegetarian.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, that's right. And who here is on a journey of discovery that has the courage to come here tonight and the awareness to come here? But this is the first time they're hearing about it. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Really appreciate that. It's lovely to have you here. Okay. So who came to veganism through concerns about the environment? Okay. What about health? And what about the treatment of animals? That's the majority of people, isn't it? Because the true meaning of veganism, of course, is a philosophy of the non-use and exploitation of animals. Okay? And when we realise the full extent of it, of course, that a mere 7 billion of us use, rape, torture, murder, kill 150 billion plus animals per year, there's something very wrong, isn't there? Okay. And when we find out about that, and if you haven't heard that statistic before, it's so shocking. So we know this information, we come across it, and it's a little bit scary becoming a vegan in one sense, because there's an existential crisis. Well, if I didn't know that, because where is it all? What else don't I know? You know, vegans cannot ever use the word conspiracy when they think about aliens. They can't, if you think about it. Because there's all this other stuff going on, you know, and what else? But, you know, we need to expand our mind and think about this stuff. So, who thinks they're not thriving? They're surviving, and they feel anxious. They see a bit of footage. Their video goes on Facebook, and they feel traumatized. Yeah, a lot of people, that's right. So we can be taken back to that place. So the reality is then, for a lot of people, there's a sense of trauma. There's a sense today, there's a big expose on the little baby calves, more footage, more people working undercover, and our heart drops. And we tend to think, oh my gosh, is it getting worse? The reality is, when we shine light on things, of course, things come out of the dark. And I think there's never been a time to, number one, for the world to need to be vegan, and secondly, for the opportunity to move people into a vegan world. You know, when in 1979, nobody was mentioning it. Okay? And only a few years ago, you know, we've even got it on Australia Day, the advert. Everybody see that? Everybody, yes, there was the torching of the kale of the vegan who looked emaciated and looked like some stereotypical terrorist, no furniture, you know, and all the others in $5,000 suits and looking amazing, of course, and flying in on helicopters. You know, we can either see that, isn't that terrible, it's prejudicial, or we can say, what are you so threatened about? You've got to put it on the Australia Day advert, so it's really, in many ways, exciting. But, you know, as Gandhi said, first they ignore you, then they fight you. First they laugh at you. First they ignore you. Then they laugh at you. Then they fight you, and then you win. In many ways, we're at the fighting stage. But actually, I want to show you a different way today because, as Mother Teresa said, no amount of violence has ever solved violence in this world. Okay, we need to use a different thing. And I want to do some really practical stuff with us tonight to show you also in the quantum field what needs to happen for us to vision that future, to be totally thriving. Okay? And to leave empowered, I believe, and I hope. Okay, that's my greatest hope for us. But for many people then, there's a sense of trauma. I get a lot of calls all over the world. You know, I just can't live in this world. I get panic attacks, I get nightmares, and particularly when people first come across this stuff. You know, when the shock, the horror, how is it possible? And we look at our fellow humans and say, how is it possible for us to do this? And then you don't see a leather sofa, you see an animal's body. You don't see a steak, you see food. Okay, you don't see milk, you see a bobby calf. You know, so there's this re-traumatization. And so we get repeated association through imagery and whatever. And if and I'm going to teach you a little bit about neuroscience. Are there any neuroscientists here? Oh, good. There's one there? Excellent. So I might be calling on you later. But we get repeated exposure to things. We just have to think about it. The whole thing triggers into place. And we want to change that tonight. Okay? And there's that constant reinforcement. We need to change that. All right. So let's have a look at taking the assumption that for many of us at times, or when we see or hear terrible things, it's traumatizing. So let's have a look at how those thought and feeling patterns happen. So just say generally in life, we get a thought. Say it's a negative thought. Let's work away from veganism at the moment. We don't like our brother-in-law. Okay, we've had a terrible experience at this time of year with him, and we get a negative thought. Then we get a sort of feeling in the stomach, oh, gee, I don't want to see him again this weekend. And that results in a certain feeling. You get another thought, I'll do that in a second, and then another feeling. So negative chemicals go into the body, stress, hormones, cortisol. Oh, gee, I really don't like that guy. Another thought creates a feeling. So thoughts create feelings, feelings create thoughts. Thought create feeling, feeling create thought. And then we've experienced it enough and we say, I can't stand that guy. All right? Suddenly there's an emotion attached to it. And of course, in the same way, if we really like things, and we think, oh gosh, I'm going to plant-powered Perth tonight, we feel upbeat. Positive hormones, hope, trust, anticipation. And then we get a nice feeling in our stomach, and then it reinforces, and we see people's faces. And again, if we would wire people's brains up, we would actually see there's little furrows in the brain, literally, neural pathways that get created. So we have to think about plant-powered Perth, and then a smile comes to our face. Okay? Thank you for giving us that gift. So if anyone else has got it on, just we have to turn it off. Lovely. All right, so let's have a little look. So the person who sees the traumatic image, they see something like the expose today, they suddenly feel anger. They go, how is that possible? It's horrible. How can people eat meat? And how can people do these things? And so there's a sense of hope. We put a label on it. We feel hopeless. Oh, the problem's just too big. Okay? And then it results in another traumatic image because we then remember all the other stuff. And then it triggers a response. So this sort of continues like this, and if we wire the brain up, this sort of thing happens. But the problem is they're disempowering emotions. They're fear-based, they're survival-based, and we're not thriving when we're in that stage. All right? We don't want to be there. So let's have a little look. So neurons that fire together wire together. Okay, this is a little neuron. It's kind of how it looks, but I believe and then you've got little neural pathways. And if we were to teach or people that have learnt the piano or learnt a particular skill, we can actually see when a new skill is learnt, these little pathways come through. And just imagine them. They're a bit like, anybody ski here? Few people sort of thing. That's right. So if you go to the top of the ski slope and you get at the top and you're just about to go, nothing's going to stop you, is it? That's right, you go down there. But if you wanted to break through the bushes and start a new path, it would take a while. So neural pathways are like that. When they're well informed by these thought-feeling patterns, ground, and so they create a pattern. And that pattern relives the emotional state. So as soon as you see the image that set it up in the first place, or an associated one, or you think about it. I go back and I think about that Bob Geldof image. It doesn't do it to me now, but for years it did it because it was firing and wiring. Okay? So, neurons that fire together, wire together. So what we have to do is, what's the solution then? Because, we may do affirmations, we try to be positive, we meet with other people, and yet we're going along fine, and then somebody tells us something. Or, we're so excited that the greyhound legislation in New South Wales is going to be set, And then Baird pulls back on it, and we, oh, gee, can't believe it. Okay, and then everyone gets on Facebook, and a lot of people say, oh, it's desperate, it's whatever. And there's this wound, it gets in a terrible state. Okay? And so what's the solution for us firing and wiring? The first thing, of course, is that we need to stop exposing ourselves. Okay? Once you've actually come into this awareness about animal social justice and you've taken things in your life to do, don't keep looking at the material. Okay? Now, I hope that's a strategy a lot of us have adopted. Okay? Now, and turn off the video, the automatic thing. Now, for people that here are working in animal social justice, who's working in this area? Maybe you're working in that area. Okay. But, there's people that work undercover, work in animal liberation, in areas where you have to see enough. I only see what I've got to see. If I'm going to talk on, I do a lot of that emceeing for Animals Australia, so we might, you need to know sufficient. But I will turn the sound down, I will turn the light down, and I will not re-traumatize. I just need to know sufficient. I don't need to be, we need to keep our resources to transmute that grief and rage into something really positive. All right? So we stop exposing ourselves, and we need to rewire our brain, which is a little bit of what we're going to try and do this evening. Okay? Anyone up for rewiring? Excellent. Okay. Now, nerve cells that no longer fire together, no longer wire together. Now, imagine a traumatic experience you've had in your life. Years ago, you fell in love with someone, and it all ended in tears, and at the time, you never thought you'd get over it. Okay, or you had a traumatic experience, a death in the family, or something, very, or an animal dying, and it's very, very sharp, isn't it, when these things first happen? And yet, as time goes on, you sort of think your grandmother says, time heals everything, which you don't want her to say at the time. We kind of know it is true, and it's really largely because we get on with life and have to assimilate the reality of that for all of us. But secondly, those nerve cells are not firing and wiring together. So it's not as provocative every time, okay? Unless it's become so ingrained and people can actually stay in a trauma situation for a very long time, okay? So let's have a look then. So what we're going to do is think about if you're not thriving or there's days when you don't thrive, come into extreme awareness. Look at your own patterns. Look at your own mood states. When do I feel really, my gosh, we are so near to creating a vegan world. We're so near to creating a compassionate world. We're so near to Barnaby Joyce being put out of office. Okay. Absolutely. It makes Donald Trump look like Club Med. I had someone a friend of mine in America said, I can't believe that, Trump has got in. And, I just wish I was in Australia. I said, well, just before you start making those judgments, we're a little bit more right-wing than you realise. Well, we're not, but it's the, the business at the top. We call it a government. It's not actually a government. It's actually, I think it's even listed on the stock exchange. I'm not joking there. So, it's actually a corporation. Anyway, we need to extinguish those associations to create new pathways. Well, thank you very much, Claire, but how are we going to do that? All right? Okay. Is this making sense?
Yes.
Is this interesting?
Yes.
Would you tell me if it wasn't?
Yes.
Oh, excellent. Good. Okay. All right. So stop exposing ourselves, and we need to create these new neural pathways. And this is where the neuroscience comes in. And I've just ascertained there's a neuroscientist and things. So if anything you want to add, please do. I'm not a neuroscientist, but I know sufficient about it. All right? And in the kingdom of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. All right. This is a very similar thing. See, when we're in what we've got here, and I've got a little light, is just a little image. Have a look at that one on the right-hand side. Okay. At the moment, if we were to wire our brains up, there's quite a bit of electrical activity. Hopefully we're not in a high-stress state. That would be high beta. And those little, if we were to see the electrical activity, they would literally be going very quickly together. When we're under a lot of stress, when there's pressure at work, when we're under a deadline, we've drunk too much coffee, we're pushing ourselves too hard, or someone's pushing us too hard, we're in high beta. We are not creative, we're not innovative, we cannot create new neural pathways. We are in high beta. Most of the day when we're acting through our lives and getting on with and functioning, we're in sort of mid-beta to low beta. Now, who during the day, or even during this evening, has just thought about something else for a moment? Something pops into your head. An idea, the thing of food. That's right. That's right. Or you think about something, that's good. I wonder if I might just... You cut your intention and you come up with ideas during the day. We all do that, don't we? So when we do that, because that's our analytical conscious mind at the top, so to speak, of the brain activity, we slip into alpha. And if we were to see those waves, they're getting a little bit more slow and a bit more wavy. All right? So, and of course, anyone who does meditation, the brain waves slow down, of course. Okay? And we might even do a meditation tonight if you're open to it. Great. Okay. So our alpha state sort of thing. And that's when things popping up from ideas. You know, things go into our mind. You know, when we're in a just going into a massage, oh my God, I must remember to do that. Or we're in the concept of flow, so to speak. Okay, so the alpha state, and people say ideas come up when people are in the bath or in the shower. You know, it's a nice, pleasurable experience, and we're not working or on the computer, and we go into that state. Oh, I must remember to do that. Okay, that's when our brain waves are slowing down, and we pop into there. Now, also, just before we go to sleep, of course, our brain waves slow down. They slow down even more. They go into theta, delta, and ultimately fall asleep. That lovely time when you're falling into sleep, the brain waves are slowing down and we're asleep. Who here does meditation? Oh, fabulous. Great. Mind you, sorry?
Yeah, it's on the to-do list.
It's on the to-do list. Well, you're going to do it tonight. And you absolutely. So when in that situation, our brain waves do slow down and we're able to stay awake, but we're not falling asleep, but we're in that sort of state and all sorts of things come up. Now that's where we got the opportunity to kind of rewire the brain. When we're in the active fight or flight, we can't do it because our blood flows to the back of the brain, which we call, here's another animal analogy, the reptilian brain. Okay, all these animal analogies. Okay, it's a fight or flight, we call it the red zone. When we are alert and we're calm and we trust people around us, we're at the front of the brain. We're open to ideas, we can take constructive criticism, all those sort of things. So when we're in fight or flight, we're hovering back there, we're reactive. But also take this as a note, because it's not only about us. When we're talking about veganism, when we're talking to other people, if we attack them, or they're resistant and angry, and what about my jobs, and the government would never allow it, their brain waves are going crazy, their blood's at the back of the brain, they cannot reach us. Okay? And so in that moment, veganism is a bit like kissing. Why is talking about veganism like kissing?
No idea.
You can't kiss someone who's leaning away from you. Okay? So we've got to bring them forward, their brain forward, but also them. And they go, oh, tell me more. And so we'll do a little bit on communication this evening as well. We're going to do the mindset side, then we'll do this, if I can keep your attention long enough, hopefully. All right. So this is what we need to do. So in the high beta waves, we're fight or flight, we can't make the new connections. However, change happens in the alpha state. All right? Now, so we slow it down to there by doing bringing ourselves to a state of calm. Okay? Slowing down our breathing, trying to check in with the body. And then, instead of moving away from the pain, we need to move to the future. Because so many of us say, that is what I don't want. I don't want to live in a non-vegan world. I don't want to go into shops and be confronted with this stuff. I don't want, people to say I own my dog and all this sort of stuff. I don't want a speciesist world. So instead, we need to move towards a vision of the world that is our job to create and hold that possibility for other people. So they look at us and go, oh, I want what you want, you've got. Okay? You look healthy, you look vibrant, you're fun to be with, you're not judging me. Tell me more. Okay? And it's hard when someone's the things we know. But that is what's going to change the world, is we need a vision of the future. But when we're in a meditative state, we need to anticipate the emotion we would feel when we're there. And elevated emotion, as if it's already happening, with that vision of the future is going to create new neural pathways. So that when we're out of the meditative state, we can actually envisage that and we can literally bring that state of being across us. And that's when we get to thriving. Okay? And when we couple that with exquisite skills of being able to communicate these issues, the most difficult of questions, by learning some key communication skills, which are all about having difficult conversations, we start to be really thriving vegans. And we're irresistible, aren't we? Absolutely. Absolutely. So what are we going to do here? Let's have a look. So let's have a look at our strategies for change then. We've all learned to meditate in the alpha state. And I've said we need to create a vision of the future of a vegan world. What would we be doing? What would we be saying? What would it be like walking down the road? You know, I was on the plane the other day, just coming here, and the woman said, would you like a cup of tea? I brought my own meal and all that stuff. And would you like it? Yes, please. And she came back and she put milk in it. I went, oh my gosh, no. And it seemed like such a rude reaction to her. But it really was as if she put a steak on my thing. Because I didn't see milk, I saw something else. I saw the whole production system. And she said, oh, okay, I'll change it. And then I pulled her aside and I said, hey, look, might have seemed a little bit reactive. No, you've got it right. I said, no, it's not about my dietary preference. I've just been doing a bit of research into where all this stuff comes from. And you wouldn't believe what happens to these animals in this production. She said, well, what do you mean? Can you see what I said? You wouldn't believe what they do to us. You know, can you believe what they tell us? You know, and almost as if I'm drinking this stuff too last week, which I haven't done for years. But I didn't judge her. It wasn't her fault. She doesn't know. She's been equally duped by a system that deliberately tries to keep it from people. You know, deliberately tries to keep the fact that 48 out of 48,000, you know, mammals on this earth, we are the only mammals that breastfeed into old age by proxy of another species. And they think vegans are mad. Think about it. It's just like crazy. Okay? So, you know, but again, that was like communication, but it actually had a violent effect on me. Okay. We create a vision of that vegan world, and imagine what it would be like. Imagine a compassionate world, you know, that was kind and expansive. Imagine a world with no money. Because money is actually a form of slavery. You know, it's, you know, money can be used for great things. But actually, it's really a system of slavery, and that's something if we get a chance, I'll share with you more, because I think there's a place beyond veganism, you know. And I live with someone who's a really big thinker, and he says, what's the place beyond veganism? Because that should really be the status quo, shouldn't it? And actually, I'd love to share that with you, and give you some great reading over the Christmas. You know, when you come across an idea, and someone who's been working on this for 30 years, and they explain how this might work. It's not socialism, it's actually contributionism. And it's really exciting. So you're going to be watching a lot of great videos over the Christmas, or, well, I think that's what they call it this year, didn't you know? Sorry? Ubuntu, absolutely. This gentleman knows it already. Yeah, if anyone's come across it. Michael Tellinger's work, absolutely. Yeah. Somebody be in a room where you know people sort of read the same things, and, you know, which is great. Because the reality is, so we've got to do this meditation, we're going to have a go at that. The reality is that, who considers himself as a salesperson here? Right, okay. You mean in your everyday work, or? Yeah. You should all put your hands up. Yeah, all of us are salespeople. With a sledgehammer. That's right. Remember, it's like kissing. Because we are salespeople. We have a solution to a problem the world doesn't even know it's got a problem to. Okay? It solves absolutely every problem on the earth, I believe. Yeah? Health-wise, economically, socially, spiritually, water-wise, health-wise. Sorry?
Climate change.
Climate change-wise, environmentally-wise, everything. Yeah? And so there's a problem there. They don't know they've actually got the problem. All right? We've got the solution. And so we've got to agitate either the pain or the vision of the great new world for them to go, oh, that's interesting. Okay, the pain's getting a bit hard for people. When they start getting health problems, they might look into this. Okay, when they start to live in, they start to look environmental change and they make the connections. Oh, I better look at that. But so ultimately, we got to get a vision of the world that we go, oh my gosh, this is where I want to live. Yeah, which is great. All right. So I think it was Walt Disney's wife when they went to gain the Oscar or pick it up for him. He was no longer alive, and they said to his wife, what a shame Walt Disney wasn't here to see the final accolade and the reward. She said he saw it well before he opened his mouth. Every vision of the future begins in there. Okay, and that's what we've got to hold dear to us, so we move towards the reward and not necessarily the pain. Okay, so how are we doing for time? We're okay? Yep, everyone's okay. Do they throw us out, maybe? All right, lovely. Now, if anybody finds they do need a little bit extra help, I've got a little free program, which is a downloadable program, which I think we're recording this, so it'll be there, which you can actually have. It's 21 little recordings and some immediate strategies to help us on the way there. Okay. I'm going to move into something else before I do this. Would you like another strategy to help you, particularly when that's helpful? Okay? All right. Anybody heard of emotional freedom technique? Yeah, one, two, a few people. Yeah. Anybody use it and anybody like it? Like it? Yeah, okay. So a lot of other people, would you mind if the other people that know it, we can go through this? Okay. Emotional freedom technique is something I call emotional acupuncture without the needles. Okay? Think of a time, you know when you, maybe you've hurt a part of your body, you had an accident or something, goes to show the memory being in the body. And suddenly your shoulder aches when you get tired or something. All right? Or that happens. Because there's sort of cellular memory in the body. Or we remember an event and we get a physical reaction. You know, in our modern world with science only, and I apologise to any scientists here, only a couple of 100 years old, you know, we tend to think thoughts are in the head, so to speak. Okay? Anyone who's ever read the book Heart Math, come across that? Heart Math is a great book that says things are registered well in the heart and literally the physical place of there well before the electrical activity in the brain. You know, but the only problem is with any methodology is if all we've got is a hammer, every problem becomes a nail. Okay, so emotional freedom technique is basically based on the idea is that, you know, there's cellular memory in the body. And when we're feeling something and we're trying to shift an emotion, you know, we say, I've got to be positive, I mustn't be negative. We're trying to use the disembodied world of ideas and thoughts to deal with a very physically felt experience. So it's a technique where we're actually tapping on certain parts of the body whilst we repeat certain things. And it might look a bit crazy, but if I can do it at the front, so can everybody else. Okay? I've used it with trauma patients. It's used often in these reactions. And this lady's saying it works. It does work. Okay? I use it myself. Okay? So say, for instance, as we all do, we're all busy. We're involved in all sorts of advocacy work, no doubt. And sometimes, you know, you're up against a bit of a tight schedule. You wish you had more time to prepare something. You feel overwhelmed. Okay? I often use it with that. And I think, hey, because when we're in that state, remember, we're not empowered, blood's back there, we're not present. We're only overwhelmed if we're not present, really. We're thinking about the future or the past. Okay? So what this does, I believe, is to make us absolutely present. Not trying to fade or fix and say, you shouldn't be feeling like that. It's not judgmental. It accepts the condition. And then it chooses for us to move to a different state of empowerment and bring forward those emotions we feel when we move to that different thing. Anybody want to go? Excellent. Okay. So normally we would ask what emotion we wish to shift, but what is a collective one that we might experience? Anybody? Despair. Okay. Anybody occasionally feel despair? Yeah? Okay. Not everybody? I mean, say, for instance, there's just been a big expose by Animals Australia about the calves and things. There can be a sense of perhaps despair, or perhaps we believe, we feel... can we go with that, despair? Can we just use that as an example for what it is? You know, is it ever going to change? You know, is, Donald Trump's come into power? But the reality is, if you look at Donald Trump, okay, one sure thing, whatever we think, is people actually said, enough of what we have. We've had enough of the economic system. We've had enough that $1 trillion go missing. We've had enough of these things. And, you know, there's a perception that something will be different. You know, I don't necessarily think he's going to come up with the goods, but the reality is people believe that they want change and they're prepared to speak out and be unpopular in the process to do it. So we just need to have some different opportunities. Okay. But why did I say that? But, you know, we might feel despairing, might think, is it ever going to be changing? Will we ever reach that beautiful state of, you know, when we can be expansive and empowered and not competing with each other? We're collaborating and, you know, not abusing this planet. Okay, so we might feel that. We might feel despair. We might feel, will things ever change? We might feel... Frustration. We might... So I'll just remember 3 because it's hard to remember them. So we feel frustrated, we feel despairing, and we think things will never change. That happens to all of us at some stage. Not only around veganism, maybe about other things. Okay? All right. So now we don't want that. So let's have a look. So when you feel that, or whatever feeling you're going to feel the emotion of, and you want to change it, firstly, remember the first point of change is become aware. We go, what is it I'm feeling? Or, you know, check in with your body. And you think, well, I'm frustrated, I'm despairing, and I don't think things are ever going to change. All right? So instead of just trying to force yourself into pulling yourself together and being positive, or distracting yourself, because the body won't let you get away with that, and say, no, I feel terrible. Okay? You're going to become very present. You're going to accept that that's where you are, firstly, and you're going to tap on certain types of the body because you're accessing previously felt cellular memory, but without trying to rationalize or logicize it. All right? So that's a word. Right. So you take the hand. Who's here? I'm right-handed. So the hand that you write with is the one that's going to do the hard work, the tapping. All right? The other one is going to, at the moment, be like a karate chop. All right? Remember, if I can do this, so can you. Can we all have a go? All right? Okay. So you take the hand that the one who's writing with does the tapping. Okay. As with all these things, you slow the breathing down. All right? Like with the meditation. So you've labeled what you're feeling. Okay? You might be overwhelmed sometimes, might be that, but we're going to go with these. For demonstration, you slow that breathing down. And then you take the hand you tap with and you start to tap here. Breathing in. I won't get you to repeat it after me because we're not at school, but I want you to do it in your head as I'm doing it, all right? And you'd say, although I'm feeling frustrated, despairing, and I think things will never change, I totally love, honor, and respect myself. Breathing in and breathing out. Although I'm feeling frustrated, despairing, and I think things will never change, I totally love, honor, and respect myself. You're not judging yourself for what you're feeling. There could be feelings you really don't think are part of you, but they are. You just accept it. Although I feel frustrated, despairing, and I think things will never change, I totally love, honor, and respect myself. Nice deep breath. And then you take both of your hands and we work down through the chakras and the meridians. Okay? You tap on the top of the skull and you say, breathing in, frustrated, despairing, and thinking things will never change. And what I do is to imagine like a dark grey smoke and negativity literally leaving you. On what we call the third eye. Frustrated, despairing, and believing things will never change. Either side of the temples, and now nice and slow, becoming really present. Frustrated, despairing, and believing things will never change. Either side of the nose. Frustrated, despairing, and believing things will never change. Accessing the previous times in your felt memory of this happening before. You might, as you're doing it, become emotional. You might feel overwhelmed. You might start to yawn. This is all good stuff. Okay, on the chin. Frustrated, despairing, and thinking things will never change. Dark grey smoke leaving your breath. And here in the throat. Now at times when you feel really upset by things, this can be very uncomfortable. There's a lot of grief and things kept in the lungs. Feeling frustrated, despairing, and believing things will never change. With the hand you tap with on the opposite side of the arm, I don't know why, it's different parts of the meridians. Feeling frustrated, despairing, and believing things will never change. And then with the tapping hand on the opposite arm, above the wrist, feeling frustrated, despairing, and believing things will never change. And with the hand you tap with over the heart. Although I'm feeling frustrated, despairing, and believing things will never change, I totally love, honor, and respect myself. Although I feel frustrated, despairing, and believing things will never change, nice little circle, I totally love, honor, and respect myself. And although I feel frustrated, despairing, and believing things will never change, I totally love, honor, and respect myself. And bring your hands down into your lap and just check in this first part of this exercise. Just check in with your body. You may feel nothing. You may feel calmer, you probably do. You may feel something else. I promise you the more you do it, you will start to feel things. Okay, but it's fine exactly where you are. And the reality is you don't want to feel like that. Okay? How do you want to feel? You want to feel... You want to feel amazing, yeah? How do you want to feel?
You want to feel happy. happy all the time?
You want to feel happy.
Do you love yourself all the time?
Sorry?
Like you love yourself
Yep.
all the time and there's never any doubts in your mind? And
That's right. So the opposite of the doubt. We want the positives. We want to feel happy. We want to feel peaceful and certain. Feel happy, peaceful, certain. Empowered. We could try and remember 4. I think I might struggle if I... Whatever the words are, okay? So we're going to go 4. Peaceful. Happy? Empowered?
Yeah.
Happy, that or certain. Are we okay? Can we go? I won't remember 4. Okay? But whatever it is, you get the gist of this, okay? So you've moved it. You've accepted where your body is. You've accessed the felt memory. And you start doing it again. Hand that's tapping. Now, the thing is, with our psychology... When you're feeling really upset and you tell your body that's what it's feeling, it's going to go, no, I'm not. I feel terrible. I feel despairing. So we're going to play a little game. Okay. Although I'm feeling frustrated, despairing, and thinking things will never change, I choose to feel peaceful, empowered, and happy. Okay? Although I'm feeling frustrated, despairing, and believe things will never change, I choose to feel peaceful, happy, and empowered. Although I'm frustrated, despairing, and believe things will never change, I choose to feel happy, empowered, and peaceful. Lovely, great. Okay, with your both hands, you're going to start tapping here, choosing to feel happy, empowered, and peaceful. And as you breathe in, imagine a warm, healing light literally coming across your face, and then that just healing you and bringing those emotions into your being. On the third eye, choosing to feel empowered, peaceful, and happy. And as you say it, you're accessing felt memory of previous times, and the more you can bring that into your feeling now, the more you're changing your neurology. Either side of the temples, choosing to feel happy, peaceful, and empowered. Breathing in and breathing out. Happy, thank you. Choosing to feel happy, peaceful, and empowered. Lovely. Healing light as you're breathing in. Tapping on the chin. Choosing to feel happy, peaceful, and empowered. Trying to bring that into you. Lovely. Okay, anchoring it in the body as you're choosing to shift into this state. In the throat. Choosing to feel happy, peaceful, and empowered. Feel it coming down to the core of your body, reminding you and accessing a time when you have felt these things before, and you're shifting yourself into that state. With a hand that taps under the opposite arm, choosing to feel happy, peaceful, and empowered. Breathing in and breathing out, that beautiful healing light, bringing you a state of calm. With the hand that taps on the opposite wrist, choosing to feel happy, peaceful, and empowered. And then that lovely circle with the tapping hand over the heart. Although I was feeling frustrated, despairing, and feeling it won't change, I choose to feel happy, peaceful, and empowered. Although I was feeling frustrated, despairing, and believing things will never change, I am happy, peaceful, and empowered. And then last of all, although I was feeling frustrated, despairing, and believing things will never change, I am fully happy, peaceful, and empowered. And with your eyes closed and you put your hands in your lap, I want you to notice the shift in your body. Okay. I promise you, the more you use that, you will be in a situation at work or anywhere you are, and you literally could just start tapping on your heart and you make the associations. You might even be in a meeting and you can visualize it, just start rubbing your wrist. Okay? Anybody want to give any feedback on that? Did anybody particularly think, gosh, that felt different or feels calmer? Yes? Yep.
I feel lighter.
Feel lighter. Yeah, it's extraordinary. It's used with extreme trauma patients when words just make it more and they sort of reinforce it all in the head and the neurology. It really is excellent. I had to look at some footage for Animals Australia this afternoon, and I rang my partner, and I was really upset and angry, and I thought, oh. And he said, can you practice what you preach, please? It's lovely when family do that, isn't it? And I went into the other room, and I just did this, although I'm feeling, and it just brought me to a state of calm. Went back into my body, grew deep roots, and then I got active. And then I wrote this really long letter to somebody last night without attacking, but was really empowered. We want to transmute that into powerful action. We can't do that in the fight or flight, and we can't do it in the bloods back there. Okay? Excellent. I hope you enjoyed that. Excellent.
What was that called? Sorry, just to clarify.
Yep.
Do you have to speak out loud, or is it okay if it's just a thought?
It's all about intention, isn't it? Absolutely. So yeah, you could do it definitely as a thought, absolutely. But I would encourage yourself to do it because we're so used to hearing words. But if you're in the middle of a train station, and they sort of definitely get you a seat. There's one sure thing. But no, it's all about intention, isn't it? That's what I was saying. The more you can make those patterns and reactions, which is as much in the brain as the cellular memory, you'll be able to just do this like, I can be a bit like that sometimes. Yeah, exactly. So, people see me just... Please.
One of those things is sufficient if you were, say, in public or...
Absolutely, yeah. And you choose, so in other words, you become aware, you label the emotion, you go through it, and don't think, oh gosh, I've left something out. It's all about intention, It's and it's called emotional freedom technique. Okay, you can look it up, you can get online. There's whole conferences about it, and it's extraordinary. Some people really go into a lot of depth and become quite prescriptive. I'm a person that likes to be pragmatic. It usually works, and excellent. So, and just go through the thing of accepting it. You're not judging yourself, and then you go, I don't want to be here. But you can't miss that first thing, because else you're going into your head to try to work yourself out of it. See yourself calming down, see yourself bringing yourself to a state of ease.
Oh no, I was actually thinking and staring at you at the same time.
Oh, that's all right.
And listening. I find it hard to remember to do that when I'm in a crappy place.
Yeah, sure.
So I know the techniques exist,
Yep.
but when I'm in a crap spot, I
Absolutely.
forget that it's available, or I don't think.
That's right. Yeah, and it's getting the habits. Today I forgot to do it, didn't I?
Yeah.
I was there, and actually was there, and I thought it was energizing me, but it wasn't. It was draining my energy because I couldn't do that. I wanted to, yeah. So absolutely. So it's all about, again, do it in your meditation. You might even think when that feeling comes across me, you might make those associations then that you start to sort of act in that way. All right.
Why does the technique include tapping?
Really, I think it's to do with cellular memory as much as anything. You're making access with the felt body. Yeah? Because if not, we're in the world of ideas and thoughts and disembodied reality, really. Yeah? And so what you...
Do these techniques come from yoga?
They come from...
Do they come from yoga?
No, there's actually, oh gosh, a dear friend of mine, Margaret Meners, has written a beautiful book called The Power of Tapping. And there was I think it was a psychiatrist originally who was working with a trauma patient. And thank you very much. Callahan, that's it, Dr. Callahan. So do a little Google on this and look at the history of this, and then called it emotional freedom technique. Started to work with, it looks almost like an Eastern medicine, doesn't it? Because it's working through the meridians of the body. You can look more depth into it if you like. Margaret Meners is the book on the power of tapping. But, Google's your friend. Sorry? Meners, Munoz. She's in Sydney. Yeah, I think she does sessions with people. All right, all good. How are we doing for time? Are we good? Energies?
Good or not, really.
Sorry?
Good or not, really.
Oh, yeah, well, you're all so amazing. Excellent. Okay, so we've got this little thing here. Now, so we've learnt a few different things tonight, okay? We've learnt about what happens in the brain. Can I just do a little technique before we do communication? All right. We've done several things. We've just done emotional freedom technique. I want you to turn to the person next to you and describe to them and explain to them what it is and how you're going to use it. Because then you're going to reinforce it in your own mind what it is and clarify with each other. Yeah? It's all good? Excellent. Okay. Okay, hopefully you learned something. Anybody want to ask any questions of me or anyone else to clarify any of that? Or we're good? Yeah? It's a nice technique, isn't it? So, when you're in, sessions with, the groups you work in, if there's things to be clarified, it's when we speak things and when we reinforce them and ask questions, it becomes personal, doesn't it? Yeah?
No, what is the best way to remind yourself when you feel, or is it just about more practice every day?
Well, you remind yourself when you have a feel. Well, if you can tell me that, you can come and see me this afternoon when I was in the... well, I think it is practice. The more you use it. I think where I went wrong is I've not been doing it as a practice thing. I've been waiting for that thing when I need it. So I have to think, oh, gosh, I need my partner to actually say, hey, Claire, why don't you practice what you preach? And it was just so empowering. Maybe there was a bit of indulgence in me as well. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to stay there. I was really, and so, but again, it's awareness. I think it's, we once you become aware of it, of course, you can't quite get away with it, can you? And I realised it wasn't that empowering. All right. So I think it's also habit is don't wait for it to happen. So you might, at the end of the day, have it like a daily clearing. Whatever's happened in the day, you might review and, where did you slip from consciousness? Where did you slip from, holding this possibility for things? All right? Sorry?
Can you just imagine that particular circumstance arising and then connecting what you want to feel to that particular instance?
Can you give me an example?
When you experience adversity, if you anticipate that adversity is best, can you actually just connect more calm feelings to that so that you remind yourself?
Yeah, I think it's really, in many ways, you of course consciously trying to actually change and be more positive and actually say, whoa, what am I, becoming self-awareness, I think, is obviously a very important thing. So you might actually say, whoa, what am I feeling? What am I thinking? What am I doing? And actually, you could perhaps visualise that or change that. I think the challenge can be is that sometimes I think we start to logically work things out. That would be my sort of take on it. Is it a practice you use yourself to?
I know that there's some practical psychology books out there. There's a Power of Habit book as well that I've been reading, which is trying to practice and anticipate adversity and then actually applying new responses.
Okay.
To those circumstances.
Yeah. There's a methodology by Dr. Viktor Frankl. People know who Dr. Viktor Frankl is? Yeah? But he developed a method called logotherapy, and if I can just briefly share it with you. Viktor Frankl was actually in a concentration camp in the Second World War. Been lots of wars since, unfortunately. But and he found actually his wife died, his whole family died, and he was a most extraordinary man because he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Man's Search for Meaning. There's another one by Rollo May, I think, Man's Search for himself. Man's Search for Meaning. But he talked about the experiences in the concentration camp, and he said that obviously under enormous diversity, under starvation and abuse and degradation and not knowing how they would get out, he found that when there was hope and the Americans were coming to save them, people's hope went up, okay, even though they still were starving. And then when the date came, they thought they were going to be released and they disappeared. Some people just gave up hope completely and they literally died. The ones that didn't give up hope went on to live. Now, it's an inexact science, but he's talking about that circumstance. And he uses the phrase in his book, if you have a big enough why, you will take any how. Because that's really what, a world of compassion to animals is about and other beings. If we haven't a big enough why that we want to, change this world, we'll take the journey and the how on the way. I did not want to look at that footage today, but I could not have, it was more painful for me not to look at it knowing I could do something about it. And that's, of course, the dilemma we all find ourselves in. It's because, it's a road less travelled. But, that's what we've been called to do. That's our job. Okay? And it's much we must witness with our eyes what these animals experience with their bodies. And I'm not talking about repeatedly. We need to see enough and we need to take action. Okay? So he came out of that and he formed a therapy called logotherapy, which was when you're experiencing something to actually try and experience it even worse. To try and imagine sort of feeling it worse and then sort of almost to see how your survival would be. And also, sorry, I hope I'm explaining this properly, but he gives an example of working with a man who was, in terrible despair and grief about his wife dying. And he said to this man couldn't move about it. Oh gosh, she's dead, I can't live without her, etc. And then he said to him, well, what would have happened if you had died first? Oh, well, that would have been awful. She would have felt like I felt. He said, then haven't you done a great thing? Okay, so for him, he was able to justify his pain and transmute it into, oh my gosh, now I can bear this, because actually I loved her so much, I saved her from that. She went first. Okay, I don't know if I'm quite answering the question there, but it's something about changing that whole, focusing on that pain and remaking sense of it. So you might want to look at logotherapy and just see some techniques within that. Please.
There's also techniques in NLP,
Yes.
programming and hypnosis as well.
Yes.
Anchoring, computer software,
Yes.
and anchoring and eliciting certain states and then anchoring
Yes.
and stuff. And so here with hypnosis, logotherapy, you kind of can rehearse stuff.
Yes, absolutely. Things that I think that anything that is going to move us to being highly self-aware and then actually trying to touch unconscious parts of ourselves to some extent, which are bigger really determinants than our conscious, is, it's all about self-development, isn't it? And I think of, it takes years to be a overnight success for all of us. Okay. Just as a quick aside, I met a fantastic man called Robert Knapp in Sydney. He's now nearly 90. And when he was 7, he was in a concentration camp with Viktor Frankl, and he lives in Sydney. Okay, and he was a young boy. He was Hungarian, I believe, and he found himself with Viktor Frankl, and it was quite sad because his mother was a Hungarian Jew, and when they came to Australia, she was a professor over in Hungary, and she ended up being a cleaner in one of the richest areas in Sydney, Double Bay, and she was so depressed at her fate, and not so much the fate, but actually to see the futility of a lot of opulence around her, and yet people not building community. She committed suicide, sadly. But he said that he was a young boy sitting on those slatted seats in freezing cold, in horrible pyjamas, and they didn't. If they had any footwear at all, they wouldn't take it off. Their feet would swell so much they'd never get them on. And he said at night when all the guards went away, Viktor Frankl would say, "Right, let's vision the future. Okay, what sort of dinner parties are we going to have? What wine are we going to drink? What food are we going to serve? What stories are we going to tell?" And he said he took them to a world. He said, "I really realised the power of the mind." And this extraordinary man, who didn't have a lot of education, Robert Knapp, came to this country, and he brought people like Deepak Chopra to Australia. He worked with Richard Branson, I think, at one stage, and Tony Robbins, and all these people that, we like or don't like, but they were people that get us to think about the future and be positive. And so he learnt that from Viktor Frankl, which is extraordinary, isn't it? So again, that vision of the future, which is very, very important. Okay? All right, so any other questions around that? Okay. So anything that's going to build us to actually move away from being victims, sitting in front of a television, going along with the status quo, thinking the world's a terrible place, can't trust anyone. That's actually not true, is it? Yeah. Who here has a television? Okay. Best bit of advice I can do is to say, get rid of it. Okay, all right, that's not a judgment, that's my experience. I got rid of a television about 15 years ago. Best thing I ever did. It's a load of tosh, isn't it? Really, everyone in Australia wants to watch exactly the same thing. Most of it's adverts, okay? And now we have the internet. We can watch all the great movies and Netflix, and we can check iView and see, and we do that. But we do it when we choose it. We don't just allow ourselves to be distracted and all that subliminal conditioning. You've got to afford that, and you're not fit enough, and you're not rich enough, and you're not good looking enough, and all this nonsense. Yeah, okay, so all good, hey? So let's have a look at some communication now, and I have something really exciting for you. If you may not know about it already, but if you don't, we have a big gift for everybody here this evening. All right? Okay, that sound good? I hope it's a big gift. It is a big gift for you, absolutely. Now, okay, because who here would like to communicate veganism with great ease and grace and empowerment? Excellent. Okay, who finds it really difficult when people say, the inevitable question that all vegans are asked, which is...
Where do you get your protein?
Absolutely. Okay. Or they say other things. What sort of things do they say?
They're so delicious. That's what I got today.
Sorry?
They're so delicious.
Oh, who's so delicious? Animals are so... Oh, my gosh.
What would happen to the animals if we didn't eat them?
Yeah, what would happen if we didn't eat the animal? Oh, no, come back. Sorry, come back. What would happen to the animals if we didn't eat them? They'd overrun the world. What would you do if... Let's just test the strength of the vegan's commitment. What would you do on if you were on a desert island? That's right. Yeah, what about B12? You know, all that sort of stuff. Because the people knowing it really have studied nutrition in depth. You know, all the other stuff. You know, if God didn't intend us to eat them, we wouldn't have them. The government would never allow it, and all this nonsense, okay? Our blood immediately whips to the back of the brain. We can't stand it. We want to attack the person. And then we hurl abuse, and then we realise we're not in the blue zone at the front of the brain. We're not in a process of compassion, and we're not kissing them. They're leaning away, going, see, you're just a rude person. You see, you're horrible, you old vegans. Okay? But we want to do it with great ease. So if someone says to you, I love animals, and they sit, you know they're going to sit down to something tonight, what do you say to them?
I say you love some animals and some you don't.
Right. Okay. What do you mean? That's not true. And then we get into a thing.
And then I start crying.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. So wouldn't it be lovely that you had in the palm of your hand all these, or a way to start improving communication with some tips and techniques based on the art of having difficult conversations. All right? I tell you what I say to people when they say they love animals. That's fantastic. I love being around vegans. Oh, I'm not a vegan. Well, how does that work? And then you force them to say, well, what do you mean? Okay? They've come forward. Okay? Because they say, well, what do you mean? What's that got to do with it? Well, do you know what a vegan is? Yeah, it's one of those extreme vegetarians. No, it's not. Can I tell you what it is? You start asking, you want yeses from them. Something happens in the brain when they say yes. Yeah, okay. Well, a vegan is a person that doesn't use or exploit animals. Oh, I see. So when you say you love animals, so tell me more about, you love animals. What does that mean? Well, I love my dog. Well, what about, you've engaged with them. Because when it comes out of their mouth and they start saying things and they hear their own voice, usually they talk themselves out of the craziness of the argument. Yeah? Or else they realise, and it's not to judge people. We've all been there. We've all been duped into believing that it is okay to feel we're superior, that we're God's favourite creatures and all this nonsense. Okay? So, our communication must be, if we're going to be exquisite communicators, it must be in line with a positive mindset. Okay? Because when we're angry and agitated and annoyed with people, and we go into work and they've suddenly brought the cake out and it's got all cream on it and all you see is, Sorry?
Cashew cream.
Cashew cream. Oh, absolutely, that'd be great. But that's right. But if it's not, you see stuff, and you want a Melbourne Cup comes up or something, right? You want to stay empowered. Okay. Where's your blood at the moment when you're all agitated? At the back of the brain, that's right. And we want it at the front because also, actually, there's the thing I must tell you about before we go here, is it's not just where your blood goes. It seems to be that this is the real evidence. Neuroscience is catching up with common sense. Common sense, of course, is not very common. That one day there'll be a mass outbreak, but I promise you they'll find a vaccine against it. But the reality is, and I'm just going to demonstrate something to you, is where our emotional state of where that blood flow is really instrumental in getting their willingness to listen before we look at the techniques.
Does body language have anything to do with this? Are you smiling?
Yeah, well, I guess so. Yeah, absolutely. If it's genuine, of course, absolutely. That's right. So I was just wondering about your... No, I'm saying that's not a criticism.
Please explain.
You're looking... One thing is you're looking really relaxed, which is really very positive to me. Absolutely. So if you're looking stern and you're looking... I'm going to tell you about veganism. It's probably very different than...
When I take a sales call, I try to stop my train of thought and
Yes.
and be in the call and smile,
Yes.
because that does come through.
Yeah,
with,
absolutely.
with how I communicate.
Yeah, and also your memory in your body and your head sort of thing of what it is to smile.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, I would say absolutely. But the reality, let's have a little look at it for a second, is so if, say we're feeling agitated, feeling angry, but we're trying to be professional and remember all the things about communicating, so we're going to be all nice and positive. We really can't stand these people. Carnist, all that stuff. Okay, speciesist. Okay, we can't get away with it though. The real maxim is, if you want to change the world, you must change yourself. Okay? And let me just tell you, there's two colleagues of mine down in Melbourne doing research, and they've written a fabulous book called The Success Zone. And they have been wiring up little children, or bigger children as well, in the UK and in Australia, and finding out where their blood flow is going and what happens in the classes and what happens with the teachers. So who here had a favourite teacher? You did. Who was your favourite teacher? What was she like? Oh, sorry, he like or she?
Oh, she.
Yeah.
She was really, really nice. She actually understood a lot of my poetry and
Yeah.
would read it.
Yeah.
Read it on the side, got to all the other people in my class. So.
Right. So she valued you. She understood you. She took time to understand you. She didn't pull rank on you. Didn't embarrass you in front of the other kids. Laugh at your poetry. That's right. No, exactly. All right. What about who's had a teacher they didn't like? Lady right at the back. Bit louder. Shot you down, absolutely. Embarrassed you? Absolutely. You felt uncomfortable, whatever. The teachers that we really like are supportive. They don't pull rank on us. They don't say, you're kids and I'm the teacher. We know they go the extra mile. We genuinely feel valued. The other ones are humiliating, embarrassing. You'll never amount to anything. All this language. We find that you can have two teachers looking exactly the same and nice and professional. And one class is a rowdy old class over here. And over here is a class that's all relaxed and calm. When we look at the blood flow in the brain, the class that is agitated, the teacher's blood is at the back of the brain. They're all very professional, okay? Because they're stressed. And have we got any teachers here? No, okay. And the class over here, exactly the same. But this class is relaxed and the blood is at the front of the brain. And there's what we call a contagion effect. And because children are like little sponges, they will gravitate to the area that the teacher or the adult or the influential person is going to.
I'm a nanny.
Yes.
So I understand about what you're feeling.
Absolutely. It's so true, hey? That's right, and you can't get away with it. That's right. Okay? Now, the reality is, though, when we're going to start communicating effectively about veganism, these are very difficult issues. You start telling people what's been going on in the slaughterhouse, it's going to agitate anyone, okay? Or, these are very difficult issues. So we don't want them to end up with that grief and rage and then shoot the messenger. We've got to ensure that we are at a state at the front of our brain where we're genuinely open to the plight of the person who has been equally duped in this process, to be part of an industrial system of abuse that they're just becoming aware of. So we have got to practice getting to the front by slowing down our breathing, giving ourselves a self-soothing pep talk. It's using all the body language that goes with it.
Try to remind yourself that you've got an opportunity to save animals in that moment.
That's right.
So
Remind
that's a really
yourself.
Good thing.
That's right. I've got an opportunity to do it. I'm doing something positive here. That's right. You're giving yourself that pep. But literally, I've visualised the blood coming to the front of the brain. All right? So I was at a meeting, isn't it? I just think things come for a reason. I was speaking at an event last night with some small businesses, just generally about communication I've been asked to do. And I was talking to the host woman there, and she said, "We really appreciate you talking. I've got you some chocolates." And I said, not in front of everyone, I said, it's really lovely, but unfortunately I'm not going to accept them. And I really appreciate the sentiment though, but please share them among the staff. Well, why can't you have them? I said, okay, well I will share that with you. Are you happy that I share the reason why I've got it? I got her to engage with it, and she said yes. I said, well, the reality is I don't eat dairy products. Oh, you're allergic to, are you? I said, well, yeah, in a manner of speaking, I am allergic to them. I said, actually, I've been doing a bit of research, and I came to learn where actually milk comes from. And actually the horrific treatment of, and I went through this whole process. She went, oh my gosh, that's awful. She said, I had no idea And I said, it's awful, isn't it? How we all duped into this, and it's like, we're in this collaboration together. And we're chatting, and I said, can I send you some more information? No, I'd really like that. Okay? Another one comes along, and she wants to talk about this new business opportunity. And I'm not a business advisor, but it was just, I was talking about communication. And she came along, and she said, I want to talk to you about this new business thing. I was a few people and whatever. She said, I don't know if I got enough money to invest. It's about milking camels in the Northern Territory. But the lovely thing is, this woman next to me had just been hearing this story. And we both went, and then she looked and it was in that moment I could feel all I wanted to say is, well, what about the cruelty? But actually, she wasn't expecting that. She was talking about a thing. And this woman said, well, actually, we've just been talking about this. Okay, but we're going to have those moments. I felt literally the adrenaline going to my body. As you went, oh, God, are you serious? Yes, please.
So you would eat chocolates from India?
Would I eat chocolates from India? Not necessarily, no.
Because they're sacred animals, cows.
Not at all.
Would I eat chocolate? No, I wouldn't. No.
What I'm trying to say is
No,
the
please.
cows are sacred. They're treated extremely well.
Sure.
They're milked.
Yeah.
And the milk is consumed.
So
there's no abuse of the animal.
Okay, well, it's interesting, the abuse, isn't it? Because in the tradition of, Hindus or whatever, is a belief that actually the animals are treated very well. Okay? I wouldn't, because actually, number one, I think it's stealing. Because if I was breastfeeding a child, and even if the child wasn't there, I wouldn't like someone to come along and actually take milk from me. Okay, even though I've been very well treated and was in Egyptian cotton sheets. Okay? But I understand what you're saying. People go through that debate of, well, the animal's treated okay. And what I'm going to say, and it's not directed at you, sir, but just generally, many years ago I worked in Northampton in England in psychiatry, my training. And I remember, and this is a true story, and I'm sorry if it provokes anything upsetting people, but I'm going to share it anyway to just demonstrate. And we were in a supervision sort of thing, and there was a man that was a paedophile there. And he was interviewed by one of my colleagues, and he said, you know something, I'm really progressing. Because I can give the 10-year-olds up, but I don't want to give the 5-year-olds up. Do we actually think it's okay? That actually we're treating well, we're making progress? And of course, another part of it is, and I didn't do that to shock people per se, but to get this sort of, is that therefore we're making progress? We're doing kind, we're getting there. Okay? Can we be half pregnant? And another part of that is to almost think, and I know it's an extreme example, but it's almost like taking a girl out for dinner, taking her to a high-class restaurant, best champagne, wining and dining, having a great time, and then attacking her at the end of the evening. But she had a great evening. And that's that whole argument about humane farming, of course. Is actually, we've got a right to do that. The reality is, animals, I don't believe, are ours. They're not there for us. It's not our milk. It's secretions of other creatures. That would be my reply to you. And each of us have to make, on our journey of discovery, have to make that decision, I guess. But the animal is therefore voiceless. There's a problem. They can't actually say, I'm giving this to you.
James Aspey makes a very good point, which is that the minute you consume an animal product, no matter how humanely it may be, you can no longer call yourself a vegan, and being able to call yourself a vegan is a very powerful thing.
Yeah.
So if you're having the eggs that your chooks laid in your backyard, you're not a vegan, you no longer can use that to...
Sure. Yeah. So in answer to that question is, I'll just lay that in front of you, is this whole argument, isn't it, is actually, I would consider myself to be an abolitionist, okay? But I also know that when you look at the face of the animal in the cage, I'm not going to wait till consciousness raises to such an extent that we're not going to use them at all. If I can make that cage bigger, I'm going to, okay? However, holding the vision and working to the end where we don't use them at all, I don't think they're there for us. I also think that how we act is how we would have it to be. So where do we stop? We don't have an irritating golden retriever and whack it on the head with a newspaper. So why do we do it to the cockroach? Yeah? So where does it begin and where does it end? We can't be a little bit pregnant would be my, Okay?
There's a cannibal book that had the same rhetoric.
Sorry?
Do you know Cannibal?
The cannibal?
The Cannibal Man?
No.
The man who said that he treated the people he ate really well before he
Yes,
killed them and ate them.
absolutely. It's a great PETA video. Have you seen it? Some people have seen this one, and it's actually a person begging for their life and saying, you know, mass murderer comes in, and it's pretty awful. Oh, please, I want to live. And then they take up this, you know, PETA, they're right out there, aren't they? And the person does it, and he says, it's okay, it's all right, this won't hurt, or come on, I'll treat you really well. I don't do it on Mondays, I don't kill anyone. You know, and it's really good, because it actually takes the craziness of this situation. You know, and she said, oh no, please don't kill me. Does everybody want to kill me? Oh no, there's some people that won't, but they'll tell you. Like a vegan. Yeah. So again, I don't believe animals are there for our use. And I think, I don't think other people are there for our use. I think we're, and also, as Pam Ahern says at Edgar's Mission in Melbourne, you know, if we can live happy and healthy lives without hurting others, why wouldn't we? You know, we don't need to do this. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's also really good to, when you sort of having a conversation like that and you connect with someone, to sort of get to the point where you narrow it down to the fact that it isn't a necessity. You always go back to these, but lions and but survival and but the and all these things. And when you sort of narrow it down to the point where they realise that, it isn't a necessity in this day and age, and we don't need it, then it just becomes, okay, it's just taste and what I'm used to.
Absolutely.
And then you've just got two things you're working with, and then you can easily work on those two
That's
things
right.
and get them
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, as Francione says, you know, really so much of it is for nothing more inconsequential than our taste buds. That the animals lose their lives, suffer lives of absolute pain and deprivation. You know, and agony, and let's not be part of that, and let's not feed that energy as well, and actually say, well, we can treat them well and be kind to them, and it's okay, sort of thing. All right, okay. So let's have a look at our communication then. So, people commit to what they create. Okay, so when we become part of this global movement of change, we're more likely to go further, of course. All right, so it was a few years back that I emceed the live export rally after Indonesia in Sydney, and I went home to my partner and said, you know, there's only 3,000 people there. There's 20,000 in rallies across Australia. Surely more people wanted to know about it. And he said, well, yes, you know, often people didn't get the information, they don't get it quick enough, they didn't get the right email, etc., etc. And I said, well, how can that happen? He said, well, it's really a smartphone technology, really. Things are in the palm of people's hands. They get access to information. So I thought, well, because I spend a lot of my time thinking and working around communication and running communication and leadership-y things, you know, how could I bring the skills I have hopefully help other people with about having the most difficult and crucial conversations and help them to talk about veganism? Because the principles that I've been working and teaching other people and helping learn myself from other teachers is how to have the conversations that are crucial. There's a wonderful book written, Crucial Conversation, where the emotions are high, the opinions differ, and the stakes are high. Vegan conversations are crucial conversations. And so he said, well, why don't we put something together? And so we actually, and it was only launched on World Vegan Day, we decided we'd get together. My partner's a techie person and good at bringing technical, difficult, complex things into the world of the simple. I don't mind standing in front of the camera and sharing tools and techniques that have been helpful to other people. And then we had this other great guy called David Piggin who wrote the payment systems for Optus. So he's a real geek. I apologise that he was a techie person. We got together and we created this wonderful thing. Oh no, wrong way. Keep going. Sorry. Sorry. Keep going back. We created this wonderful app which was launched only a few weeks ago called Vegan Voices. Anybody heard about it? A few people have. Okay. Not so many because we've just taken on a social media person tomorrow who's going to take all our woes away. So, Vegan Voices is a free training of 30 videos, one a day, talking about all the typical things around veganism. Okay, I'm going to give you a demonstration at the moment if you like. I'm so glad a lot of people haven't heard about it because this is why, you know. Okay, so what you see on the left-hand side, and you'll see a little demonstration, I'll give a little video in a moment, is each day you download the app in Android and iPhone. It was available about a year in iPhone, but we didn't promote it at all because it took another year to get the Android up. Each day you get a video which is between about 3 and 6 minutes demonstrating a particular principle. And it tells you a specific tip, which is a generalizable communication tool that you can use across a range of issues with these difficult conversations. Okay? So say, for instance, where do you get your protein is one. Okay, and you go, okay, how can I do that? The person goes, oh, that's interesting. Okay, so we have the principle of that. We go through the video, you watch the video, and you go, oh, this is great. Yeah, I can practice that. I'm going to do that. I can now position the argument. You've got the tip. And then you go back to your mum, of course, and she goes, yeah, but what are you going to, where's the evidence? Whatever. And you go, oh, God, I remember this at the activist forum, and I can't remember it. So you go to the resources section in the app. And then you look under environment, health, social justice, celebrating animals, and you look for a resource that you can just click the button, forward it by Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever, and email and send it to mum or Twitter. That sound like a good idea? Yeah. But the real beauty of this is all of you on your emails, on your Excel spreadsheets in your head have articles, links, information that you know has changed the hearts and minds of people. Okay? Remember, if we want to go far, we've got to work together. So you have the opportunity to submit to the app resources, videos, links that are going to change, and data which you can submit to the app and help vegans around the world communicate these issues. Okay? So that's what it is. Would you like a demonstration? Yes. Hey, good. All right. Now, if you say to any vegan, what is the most typical question that people ask you? They'll say, where do you get your protein? And everybody chuckles and groans and raises their eyebrows. But when somebody asks you that, instead of becoming defensive or humorous, it's very important that you get them leaning forward, sufficiently curious that they will ask for more information. Now, why are they doing this? Often people will comment on diet whether you're vegan or not. They make assumptions about the use of carbohydrates, protein, cholesterol, and they jump to conclusions without doing any homework. So when they come across a vegan, there's a number of issues at hand. They presume that vegans are deficient in protein, and presumably that animal protein is preferable. That they've also seen vegans having a sufficient deficiency in protein that they can warrant this sort of comment. So it's very important that you find out more information from them and then cleverly answer the questions in a way that makes them curious, to maybe even question their own myths and assumptions they have about all sorts of things. So the person asks, the problem with a vegan diet is that it's deficient in protein. Where are you going to get your protein? First, comment on the question and avoid becoming critical of their assumptions. You can do this by generalizing and asking questions like, you know, it's interesting to say a vegan diet is deficient in protein because a lot of people assume this. What makes you assume a vegan diet is deficient in protein? You put the onus on the other person to defend their position. But you also invite them to give you more information and tell you whether they have in-depth knowledge of nutrition, have believed what they've been told without questioning, or have a personal experience of vegans and their diet. If they're making assumptions, then say, there's a lot of assumptions about how much protein people need, and that a vegan diet just can't provide the amount of or type of protein that the body needs. Apparently, we don't need as much protein as we're encouraged to eat by food manufacturers, nor do we have to get it from animal sources. We can get enough protein from plant-based sources, but have to ensure that we have plenty of fresh whole foods and don't eat processed junk food. However, that's the same for non-vegans too. One interesting thing I found out, that there isn't actually a name for protein deficiency. This tells me that it's probably so rare in even the average diet that it doesn't even warrant a specific term. If you're interested, of course, I can send you some links to find out more. Now, it's important to give them more information because it removes the need for you to be the nutritional advisor, unless, of course, that's your profession. Now, if they know a vegan that wasn't healthy, you can say almost the same thing, but refer to their experience. For example, it's very easy to make the assumption from your friend's experience in not being well that the problem was the vegan diet. Some people adopt a vegan diet, but they don't do their homework, and they just stop eating traditional sources of protein and instead eat a lot more processed food. Over time, they probably become unwell, but it's probably due to vitamin deficiency maybe.
I'm not a nutritionist, but I do know people can be deficient in iron or certain vitamins if they don't eat a vegan whole food diet. It's the same with non-vegan diets, of course, too. The best thing to do is ask an expert nutritionist who's open-minded about veganism. I say this because even professionals can dismiss certain things without looking any further. So in answering the questions about protein deficiency, try to unpack the unquestioned assumptions and myths without the person feeling judged. Refer them to a nutritionist who can help them. Now, in the response I've said is refer them to a plant-based nutritionist. Because even professionals have closed minds and myths and unquestioned assumptions that stops them sometimes asking questions. It's very important that you encourage the person to open their mind as you would any professional or individual asking about diet.
What do you think? Do you like it? Great. So that just gives you an example. That's just one of them. For the initial training, there's 30 of these on there to deal with these sort of issues, like, desert islands and tradition, what do you do at Christmas and whatever. So you listen to the thing, and, you don't have to say exactly that, but you get the gist of it, okay? Some of the principles. And then there's a written piece as well, which pulls out the communication technique. But then, of course, you're now going to go and do something like that and talk to someone, and you need more information to send them, okay? So you then go to this area, which is the resources, and you're clicking on there to find different resources on this one under environment, okay? You click on it, you think that's interesting, I'll have a quick look at that, and you see it's got a rating, a tickle, because you don't want to say, oh my God, I've sent Mum Earthlings, which is a sledgehammer, okay? You need to decide, okay? And when you submit yours, you're going to give an idea. There's one that's a bit more challenging, very challenging, about cruelty and this is under animal social justice. That's a sledgehammer. All right? And you actually see this, and you see you can link there, and you can put it by text and emails and whatever, okay? And the Android needs a sharing thing in there. So then you've got that. You've got all these different sort of areas. Oh, we've lost everything now. Oh, we have to. Let's go back to here. So that's what it is, okay? Think Vegan Voice is a good idea? Yes. Great, okay. So this is what keeps me sleeping at night, because all of us need to find a way. What is your craft? What are you going to do? Okay, it doesn't have to be on the world stage. Each of us is important, and each of us is, remember, a rising tide raises all boats. Okay, so I want you to download that. I would like you to share with it. I've got lots of little cards you can share. It is a free app, a free training. You can buy it in one go, I think, for $1.50 or something. But that'll be the first part of it. We need more resources in there that needs to be put in. We're then going to be putting other programs on there, things like how to start a vegan business. We're negotiating with Katrina Fox and all these sort of things. And I should have put the little testimonial by James Aspey, but James Aspey is going to be submitting a weekly James Aspey tip, okay? Because he has a wonderful following, and it's about getting this out and getting everyone involved, because together we're going to change the world. All right, we are the ones we've been waiting for. So I think I don't have much else to say. I would love a photograph with you all so that we can celebrate this evening. Are there any questions? Please.
You're aware of the Dr. Michael Greger?
Michael Greger? No, I don't think I am.
Oh,
Dr. Michael, what has she been doing? PCRM, is it?
Nutritionfacts.org.
Yep.
He presents 2 videos, 3 or 4 minutes long.
Brilliant.
He presents the scientific evidence for the benefits of a plant-based diet.
Yes. Thank you. Does he work with Dr. Michael Claper? Does he know? Is it interesting when you've been working with someone over here? Sorry?
He
Yeah.
defended Oprah when she made comments about
right. Thank
the
you.
meat industry and their soup.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah.
The meat industry found out what happens when you sue a billionaire.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry?
You wrote the book How Not to Die.
How Not to... of course I know it. Except I didn't make the connection. How Not to Die. He's got his face on the front. And in fact, that's what... there was a talk at Adelaide Vegan Festival on that, How Not to Die. Prematurely underneath or something. Is it? How Not to Die... It's got a little thing underneath. Yeah. Because there's another one, How Not to Die Prematurely or something. Thank you for that. Lovely. But all these resources, that's what you need in the app sort of thing. All right? What is amazing? I love it when you come across something so amazing and you haven't heard about it. That means there's so much going on out there that, it's not unusual. We're not, if you don't know everyone. Please.
I live in a situation currently where I'm vegan, the person I'm living with.
Yeah.
I've tried every tactic that I've come across since turning vegan.
Yeah.
And they know what happens. They know what happens in the industry. They know about it.
Yeah.
And I refuse to watch or listen to anything, but they'll keep eating meat, dairy,
Yeah.
products 3-4 times a day.
Yeah.
How do I, in your opinion, how do I try and reach that person?
Yeah.
To get them to come around, even if you change one thing, like the milk or cut out
Yeah.
the eggs. You can't seem to make any headway at all. No matter
Sure.
what you do. What would be the best
Yeah.
way to try and reach someone?
Well, you want them to emotionally connect with something, really. They've got to emotionally connect with, because that's where change happens, isn't it, really? When it's intellectual, it's all out there. So it's trying to get them to emotionally connect with it. Ultimately, they've got to see something. But if they're in that agitated, resistant state, they'll probably just, oh my God, I can't believe you've shown me that. So is there an animal they have an affinity with? Are they concerned about the environment? You've got to pick what I call the hooks. What is it they're really interested in? Are they interested in their health? Are they interested?
Well, she was asked to look after a goat once for
Yeah.
2 or 3 weeks. And she had such a connection with it that she refused to eat goat for about 3 or 4 months.
Right.
But then she went back to it. So it's like she understands these animals. And only if she's in their constant presence does she
Yeah.
feel something.
Right.
So I don't know how to keep her in that place.
Yeah.
I don't introduce her to all these animals.
Right.
It works for a period of time.
Yeah.
Then it goes back to what it was.
Right.
Move her to a farm.
Well, that's right. It's a total conundrum, is it? The psychic defences that person has to sort of go there. But it's interesting because I was working with a couple about a year ago, maybe longer, where one of the person didn't really want to see something. They'd seen a few things, but so often we will think the resistance is they don't want to see the cruelty. The resistance is they don't want to do this sort of thing. And it may be, and it'd be a hard way of, you have to ask the person, it may be that they value not being told what to do. And that may be such a resistant thing that happened in their family, and they are rigid, what we call a sedimented belief, that will overcome other things. That I'm not going to be told what to do. I'm going to come to this by myself. And that person's coming to my mind who did that. And ultimately, they were on the same page as this, but that belief was bigger than actually their belief that it was wrong. Until they started to erode that almost and reduce that. You have to be the most tolerant vegan on the planet, this guy? Yeah? Exactly. So one is make the person connect with it. One best thing I think we can do is often we give him too much information. Don't do all the work. Ask the person genuinely with an open heart for questions about that. Okay, so when you ask her, why won't you see this information? She's just going to give you a resistant thing.
She shuts off.
That's right.
I can't even mention a V word without her shutting off.
Yeah, okay.
General conversation.
Yeah.
I think she feels something's coming and she just shuts off.
Right, okay. There's a question everybody wants to ask in this room, and I'm not going to ask it. But actually, sorry? Yeah. Yeah. So ask questions. Get her in when she's more in a relaxed state. We don't do this when we're just about to, watch the Melbourne Cup, or she's just about to sit down to dinner or something. And actually say, hello, make a contract. And Susan, well, I don't know if it doesn't matter. Susan, it's something that's been really troubling me, and I really, want to have a chat with you about it. Have you got 5 minutes? Okay, make a contract, because you know what it's like when you ask someone for a conversation, and then it gets a bit sticky, and they suddenly got somewhere to go. They can't do that if you've made the contract. Okay? Yeah, I can. 10 minutes. Okay. Look, I'm genuinely bewildered. There's things that are really important to me, and values-wise, and whatever, as they are to you. You've got issues, and we value our relationship of listening to each other. I'm genuinely bewildered as to when I've tried to show you some things, how come you won't watch them?
If I tried, she just won't talk that whole conversation. I feel
Yeah.
like I'm bullying her, so I just have to stop.
Yeah. Okay. So I always don't know what to say to you. You cannot change her. Okay? There's no way. We can't actually change anyone without their permission. Do you want to say something to the...
I was just saying Ho'oponopono.
Ah, Ho'oponopono. Absolutely. Would you like to come out the front and explain that?
Of course you would. Look at that.
Thank you. It's
an ancient Hawaiian healing tool, cleaning tool. So if I see a behaviour in somebody else, I recognise that it's in me as well, because we're all connected. So there's a prayer, and the prayer goes, Divine Creator, Father, Mother, Child as one. If I, my family, my relations, my ancestors have offended you, your family, relations and ancestors, from the time we were created to the present, humbly, 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 we ask your forgiveness. May this cleanse, cut, sever all.
It's okay.
Just realised I'm on stage.
He's great.
May this cut, sever, and basically destroy all old data, patterns, and habits, and transmute those into pure love, basically.
Yeah.
And so it is.
Thank you very much. Round of applause.
There's 4 key things. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. So if you can just remember those 4, so every time you see a behaviour in somebody else that's triggering something in me, I go, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And if you can weave those things into a conversation, you'll be amazed at how things can turn around. A friend of mine is having trouble with a shire, because he has a very big American TP and he's got people living there, it's a community thing in the hills. And they wanted to throw the book at him with buildings and all this sort of thing. And he turned the whole conversation around by saying something along the lines of, just remember, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. Look, I'm really sorry you're having to go through this, and know it's a really stressful situation. Please forgive me for not realising, that the rules and all that sort of thing. Thank you for bringing this to my attention, and I love the fact that, I can't remember what he said, but he wove those things in, no more trouble with the child.
Interesting.
He brought it back to himself, wove those things into the conversation. So it's pretty powerful.
Round of applause. Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry? Yeah? Sorry, I can't hear you.
There's legitimately a tick, like an insect, that if it bites you, it can legitimately trigger a meat allergy.
Oh, right, okay. Oh, gosh. Absolutely. Oh, there you go. Could I just add something to the Ho'oponopono? Could I just add something to... I didn't know that prayer, but thank you so much. Can I just add a little bit of background to that, to reinforce, because I think it's an enormously powerful tool. It was a guy... Dr. Hugh Len, Dr. E. Oliokalu Len. I can't see it, but I can phonetically remember it. Dr. E. Oliokalu Hugh Len was a Hawaiian healing doctor. And I can't remember exactly how long ago this was, but he worked... there was a place, and you can actually you can Google it. Google's your friend. Everything's true on there, of course. There was a hospital called the Hawaiian State Hospital for the Criminally Insane. Okay? And they had a huge turnover. There were people in there for heinous crimes, horrible stuff, rapes and murders and real pathological stuff. And they were put in there. Sorry?
I said killing animals.
Killing animals, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely heinous. In fact, as James Aspey says, we treat paedophiles, rapists and murderers better than we treat animals. And it's behind closed doors. Anyway, they were those sort of crimes, okay? They threw away the key. These people were heavily medicated. The staff used to work with their backs against the walls because they were attacked by the patients. Okay? The turnover of staff was high, the morale was low, you can imagine. Doctors came, doctors went. It was a horrible place to work. Now, they were desperate, and Dr. E. Olioka Hugh Len was implored, please come and work here, we can keep the hospital open. And he said, I will, but I don't want to see any of the patients. And they said, well, how does that work? Okay, but they don't care. As long as you're there, you're heading it up, you can direct it, fine. He said, I don't want to see any of them. A guy called Joe Vitale, an Italian guy, wrote a book called Zero Limits after he studied with Dr. Olioka. And he asked Dr. Hugh Len the question, is it true that you worked at the Hawaiian State Hospital for the criminally insane between that year and that year? He said, yes. Is it true that during that time, about a couple of years, there was a massive reduction in violent attacks, staff turnover reduced, morale went up, they started to take people off medication, they started to respond to more therapeutic methods and behave themselves? Yes, that's true. Is it true that in 5 years the hospital closed down completely and everybody was discharged? He said yes. Is it true that you never saw a patient? He said yes. Well, how does that work? Okay, he said, as this gentleman, what's your name?
Ibis.
Ibis. Ibis. Oh, lovely name. Very spiritual name. Ibis. It's a very spiritual bird animal spirit, isn't it? And he said, lost the little thread now. So.
He basically read their files.
That's right. So he basically said, Joe Vitale said, is it true you did all those things? He said, yes. He said, well, how did that work? And Dr. Hugh Len said, do you believe that everything that comes into your life, everything you do is, you're responsible for it? You actually have things you do and the outcomes you get back? And he said, well, yes, I do. He said, so things come into your life and you interact with them, you have a part to play in the outcome. He said, yes. He said, so if a criminally insane, murderous individual comes into your life, didn't you help create that too? And Joe Vitale goes, oh my God, that's a massive shift in personal awareness. Because what that means for us is, when this information about the slaughterhouse comes into, did we create that? Now, obviously we didn't physically create it, but where have we been violent to ourselves? Where have we felt murderous rage towards someone? Even if unacted, we felt it. The energy is there. And he said, therefore, if that person went to anything that comes into your life, yes, you want to act in the world and do things, but that's all we're doing. He said, but actually you need to clean up your own act first. He said, so what I did is when I actually was given a patient, I would look at their files. He said, and I would read it and feel physically sick. I would feel murderous rage. I felt this person should be put down and never come to life again. He said, if I felt it, I experienced it, I let it pass through my body, and I said 4 things, as he rightly said. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. I'm sorry, I didn't know what it was in me that helped me create this world. Okay? Please forgive me. I've been avoiding this. I haven't had the opportunity to clean up my act and therefore clean up the world. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to make this right. By changing myself, I change others. And ultimately, I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. He said that's all I did. And so imagine if we took that technique, yeah, and we used a range of techniques. We were out in the world interacting. We had exquisite communication. We're changing our neural pathways. We're mending our cellular memory. And we're also seeing that we're part of this massive thing called creation. And by cleaning up our own act, as Ibis has rightly said, we're going to change the world. Okay? And if you look at all the, a rising tide, I say, raises all boats. But there's this process of what we know as entrainment. People know what entrainment is? Okay? Google's your friend. I think it was in Switzerland, an original doctor set up, and he wanted to do research. He was a physicist, wanted to set up research. So he set up a load of grandfather clocks and put them, all the pendulums, and he put them in a room. And you can see this, they've done it with metronomes the same. All the clocks are going crazy, and all the pendulums are going like this. After a period of time, they all go like that. It's a physics phenomena that is amazing. Any physicists here? It's extraordinary. They see it with metronomes, they're all going like this, and then they all go like this. How does that happen? That happens with physical reality and physical things. It happens with us. So we do not want to entrain to the world, because that's what we've all been taught to do. We entrain to that. We eat animals, we abuse animals, we're superior. We go to work, we get enslaved, we get massive mortgages, we buy blocks of concrete, blocks of metal, called homes and cars, and we feel we've got somewhere, and then we make our children do the same. We're just entraining. Okay? Now we're creating something different. We're at a sink. But we need to get more of us, and we need to stay firm and focused so that the world will entrain to veganism. I think that's probably, thank you for adding that, because I think it's really added great value. So I hope you found that enormously valuable. I'm sure we'll mill around a little bit and speak. Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much. Go and shine, okay? Let's do this together.